Welcome to this video on things the Bible forbids you to do every day. The Bible is not just a collection of religious texts, but it's also a guide for living a life that is pleasing to God. In this video, we will be exploring some of the actions that the Bible prohibits us from doing on a daily basis. These actions are not only prohibited by the Bible, but they also go against God's standard of truth, justice, love, and compassion. So, join us as we dive deeper into the Bible's teachings on these important topics and discover how we can live a life that is pleasing to God. 1. Lie. The Bible prohibits lying in various passages, such as Proverbs chapter 12 verse 22, which states, "Lying lips are an abomination to the Lord, but those who act faithfully are his delight." In the Ten Commandments, the ninth commandment states, "You shall not bear false witness against your neighbor." Lying is considered a sin in the Bible because it goes against God's standard of truth and integrity. And it harms both the person who tells the lie and the person who is lied to. Additionally, lying can be seen as an act of distrust and betrayal of others. 2. Steal. The Bible prohibits stealing in various passages, such as Exodus chapter 20 verse 15, which states, "You shall not steal." In the New Testament, Ephesians chapter 4 verse 28 states, "Let the thief no longer steal, but rather let him labor, doing honest work with his own hands, so that he may have something to share with anyone in need." Stealing is considered a sin in the Bible because it goes against God's standard of justice and fairness. And it harms both the person who steals and the person who is stolen from. It is seen as a violation of the commandment to love one's neighbor as oneself. And taking something that doesn't belong to us, when it's not needed to survive, is seen as greed. 3. Commit adultery or engage in any form of sexual immorality. The Bible prohibits adultery and any form of sexual immorality in various passages. The seventh commandment in the Ten Commandments states, "You shall not commit adultery." Jesus also teaches on this topic in Matthew chapter 5 verses 27 to 28, stating, "You have heard that it was said, 'You shall not commit adultery.' But I tell you that anyone who looks at a woman lustfully has already committed adultery with her in his heart." Adultery is considered a sin in the Bible because it goes against God's standard of faithfulness and purity. It is seen as a violation of the marriage covenant, which is symbolic of the relationship between God and his people. Additionally, adultery can cause emotional and relational harm to all parties involved, and it undermines trust, respect and dignity. Sexual immorality is any sexual activity outside of the bounds of marriage. The Bible calls for the people of God to abstain from any form of sexual immorality. The Bible recognizes that sex is a gift from God to be enjoyed within the context of marriage and calls for people to honor it, to respect it, and to keep it pure. 4. Murder or harm others. The Bible prohibits murder and harming others in various passages. The sixth commandment in the Ten Commandments states, "You shall not murder." Jesus also teaches on this topic in Matthew chapter 5 verses 21 to 22, stating, "You have heard that it was said to the people long ago, 'You shall not murder, and anyone who murders will be subject to judgment.' But I tell you that anyone who is angry with a brother or sister will be subject to judgment." Murder is considered a sin in the Bible because it goes against God's standard of life and the value of human life. It is seen as a violation of the commandment to love one's neighbor as oneself. Additionally, murder can cause emotional and physical harm to the victim, and it can cause ripples of pain and suffering throughout the community. Harming others is also considered sinful because it goes against the commandment to love one's neighbor as oneself. It can take many forms, such as physical violence, verbal abuse, or emotional manipulation, and it can cause emotional and physical harm to the victim. It's important to remember that Jesus teaches us that, whatever you did for one of the least of these brothers and sisters of mine, you did for me. Matthew chapter 25 verse 40. 5. Covet or desire what belongs to others. The Bible prohibits coveting or desiring what belongs to others in various passages. Such as the 10th commandment in the Ten Commandments states, "You shall not covet your neighbor's house." You shall not covet your neighbor's wife, or his manservant or maidservant, his ox or donkey, or anything that belongs to your neighbor. Coveting is considered a sin in the Bible because it goes against God's standard of contentment and gratitude. It is seen as a violation of the commandment to love one's neighbor as oneself. as it can lead to actions such as stealing or deceit to obtain what one desires. Additionally, coveting can lead to feelings of dissatisfaction, envy, and jealousy, which can harm relationships and lead to emotional turmoil. The Bible encourages gratitude and contentment with what we have, recognizing that all we have is a gift from God. In 1 Timothy chapter 6 verses 6 to 8 it says, "But godliness with contentment is great gain. For we brought nothing into the world, and we can take nothing out of it. But if we have food and clothing, we will be content with that." In conclusion, the Bible sets clear standards for how we should live our lives. Living according to God's standards is not always easy, but it brings blessings and helps us to live a fulfilling and meaningful life. Remember that God's love for us is unconditional and He is always ready to forgive us when we ask for forgiveness. We hope this video has been informative and that it has helped you to understand the importance of living according to God's standards. Thank you for watching.